Welcome to Story Strategy Live. This is episode 44, The Voices in Your Head. Today, Dawn and I will be talking about author voice versus character voice. Hello, Dawn.
Hello.
I think I'm losing it. I've taken to singing along now with the theme song.
The music?
It's not just the dancing, but now that little end part, I vocalize.
Are you making up words too?
No, just, do.
We totally need to write an Evident Ink song. We need to have some kind of write some lyrics to our little.
I could hire my youngest to do that. He's when he was really small, he used to make up songs, and he would tell us because he would sing them all the time, and they were funny. I will give you one in a moment, but if we sang them, he would get super mad, and he would be like, "You can't sing that song. You're not on the list." He understood copyright at 3 years old. And so he would put you on a list if he was going to allow you to sing a song. His best hit, I would say, was Circus Parade. Although Wonderful, Wonderful Vacation was a good one too. But
nice.
Yeah, he would sing these when he was he's downstairs, so he doesn't know I'm telling you this on the live internet. He would sing Circus Parade, Diet Coke. That was the whole song. I don't know why, but
Diet Coke. Okay, that's a twist.
Diet Coke in our house. It's a prevalent theme.
Julie says, "Sound, or is it just me? Can y'all not hear us?"
I don't know. Kate, can you hear us? Brooke, can you hear us?
Anyone else who
of course we got completely silent right after we asked that question.
Right.
We are talking. Anyone? It's not us, because I don't have any settings that I've changed or anything that's different. My internet, as usual, is dodgy at best, but
okay. Brooke says
everyone should be good. Okay.
Because I was going to be sad if they just missed that wonderful musical presentation.
I think it's only you. Oh, just me. I'm good. Okay. All right. Well, you're so lucky that you can hear us, because that means you got to hear me sing. And that's something that I try to avoid at all costs in public.
I don't do that either.
Yeah.
No, in the car alone, I sound amazing.
Especially if it's Indigo Girls.
Ah.
Yeah. I just revealed my entire college career. All right. Well, so March, fittingly, is angsty, I guess. Is that fitting?
Yes.
You seemed angsty when we first started talking today. So
yes, March is not my favorite month, and angst kind of just felt like the right thing.
Okay. Well, so this month we're going to talk about, are we talking about the wound later, I think? Not today, but
we already going to talk about that. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Okay, we're talking about today we're talking about character voice and how do you voice that angst. And then we're going to talk about emotion, of how do you twist in the angst and the emotion. And then we're going to have a week off for spring break. And then we're going to try to bring in some authors who do angst really, really well. So
that'll be fun. Okay.
That's the plan.
Okay, well, so today we're talking about author voice and character voice, which are not the same thing.
No.
But I think sometimes become the same thing, especially with newer writers. It's sometimes hard to differentiate or to even understand, but if I'm the author, then anything I write is going to be in my voice, right? I'm going to be sick this whole time. I'm sorry. My nose is just runny. I'm going to call it allergies. I think it is.
Okay. It's the snow. The snow will do that to you.
Well, so yeah, let's talk about that. It was 60 yesterday. It will be 60 tomorrow. But today, it's snowing.
I don't understand why you people live places where that randomly happens, because give me 112 degrees and I'm a happy girl. So,
see, I'm not that happy with 112. I don't like 10 that much either, though. But it is sunny most of the time here, and I do like that.
Well, that's good. That's very good. Okay, so author voice.
Author voice. Yeah. So I guess, first of all, what is the difference? What would you say is the difference between author and character voice?
I would say your author voice is who you are as an author and the brand that you're creating and the style that you're creating and what a reader is going to expect when they pick up your book. And then your character voices are very much distinct depending on what world you've created for that character.
Right. I think that's fair. I think we need to be clear too that your author voice, now I can't find any words. When you decide on where you're writing, like who you're going to be, what your brand is, you don't necessarily decide on your author voice too. It should be an authentic representation of you as a writer and the way that you tell that story that you have decided to tell, which is easier said than done, especially if you really admire certain other writers and it's your first time to the rodeo and you're going to try to do what they do, which is how most people come into writing. Because then you're really, and I think you have to go through this phase. You almost go through a duplicative phase where you are trying to emulate this favorite writer that you really adore. And I think it can work. Some people are successful right out of the gate, and it turns out that, you know, their voice is actually super similar to the one that they were working on emulating. For other people, it can read really forced and feel very unnatural as a reader. And I think that's almost, I don't want to say inevitable, but you have to go through some work to figure out what is your voice as an author. And is it the same? And you can probably answer this. I think the answer is no, but is it the same if I'm writing like a really angsty romance as if I'm writing rom-com or as if I'm writing a historical fiction, for instance?
I would say absolutely not. Mm-hmm. I'd say your voice is going to change because there's genre expectations on the voices, and each book is going to call for a little bit different part of that voice, or all your books start to sound the same. Mm-hmm. And so there's this fine line of this is who I am as a writer. This is the kind of writing I do, but I bring a new spin to every story.
Right. It's almost as if your author brand is your brand, as it should be, then each book is a product. And so just like when you go to, blanking on the name of any store in the whole world, Apple. Okay. You know that there will be different products there, but they will all have a similar flavor because they're all going to be Apple products, right?
Right. So I was going to go with soda.
Soda works too.
If you buy Pepsi products, you know that they're this way, or if you buy Coke products, they're all sodas, but they have different flavors. Yes. But Apple works too.
Okay, good.
I was going to throw in on this. When I was writing, like when I first started writing, and I finished something and I gave it to a couple of people to read, I kept having people say, this doesn't sound like anything. This doesn't sound like you. Mm-hmm. And this doesn't sound, you know, I'm so surprised you wrote this because this doesn't sound like you. And I took that as a compliment.
Well,
and
yeah, I can see that.
I took it as a compliment of, oh, it's so different from who I am and that kind of thing. And then a really good friend who is a multi-published writer read something and went, this doesn't sound like you at all. Why is that? And I was like, well, what do you mean?
It's fiction.
Right. She's like, your personality isn't in there. Your sarcasm, your snarkiness, your all of your attitude, your excitement about things, none of that is coming through in here. So what's setting you apart from anybody else who's writing the same kind of book?
Yeah. And I think that's a really valid point. So it
kind of hurt, but it was a really valid point.
Because finding your voice is really hard. I think it took me 6 years and maybe like 15 books. So it's no joke, people. But I think part of the problem that any author has is that idea of expectation that it's you have to, in order to actually find your authentic voice, you have to remove yourself from the image of someone reading the words that you're writing. And you have to be able to dive into a story that you really want to tell and find the way that you tell it. And the only way to do that is to stop thinking, oh my God, my mom's going to read this, or what will my best friend think when I write this little thing? You know, you just have to do it. But it is hard. And so I have a few suggestions about how to actually get there. First, I thought it would be fun. I shouldn't say this because now I'm not going to do it, but I thought it would be fun to read like little snippets of a couple different authors to demonstrate their unique voices. But then I didn't prepare to do that.
It's been a week on that.
Actually, it would actually be very easy to do because I have the books that I would probably read from anyway here. I know I have a Melanie Harlow now. I can't find it. All right, Dawn, you talk for a second. I'll be right back. Dawn is like, oh, good.
I'm going to talk now. We all know I can do that. I did want to, while Nancy is looking for the books, I did want to point out that if you have an author voice and you want to write in different genres, or you want to write in different areas of the same genre, that author voice can change a little bit. It's still going to be you. It's still going to have your, I guess, heart of your personality in it. But the author voice can vary. And the best example that I can think of that right offhand is Nadia Lee, because she writes rom-coms. And she writes romance rom-coms of things that are like Stealing the Bride and Marrying My Billionaire Boss. And they're a lot of fun, and you like snort laugh while you're reading them and that kind of thing. And then we worked on the Sins trilogy. And the Sins trilogy is very much not a rom-com. It's a romantic suspense. It's kind of dark. Mm-hmm. And the tone completely changed and the mood completely changed. It's still an amazing set of books, but that's still her voice. You still hear parts that are very much her. It's just a different side of her. So we're not saying that if you have this, snarky, rom-com-y type voice, that you can't do something else in the same exact as the same person. Right. You just show different sides.
Well, it's exactly, your author voice is part of your personality. So the first step to figuring out how to represent it authentically is to think about who you are and what, if your best friend described you, what words do they use? People who know you really well, how do they talk about you if they're introducing you to someone else? Because those are probably aspects of your author voice that you need to honor. Trying to, if you're very sarcastic, but you decide that you're not going to write any humor into a book, it's probably not going to work super well because your brain is just going to go there because that's who you are. Whether you're writing a thriller or a rom-com or whatever, there's probably always going to be that little piece of you. And that's where people who do know you as a person will be like, oh, I can hear your voice in there. And that's a compliment, I think.
Yes, it is a compliment. Did you get some samples for us?
I did. Do you think we should do that, or is that silly?
No, go ahead. Read a couple.
All right. Well, you guys know I love Melanie Harlow. So this is Man Candy.
Oh, nice.
Which is an older book. Yeah. I must have seen her at a signing because I have her. Anyway, let's see. All right. Oh, I edited this one. So it starts, Jamie, chapter 1. I was in the closet. That's not a metaphor, by the way. I was literally physically trapped in a closet. It wasn't even my closet. It was his. And it had that guy closet smell, leather and cologne up front, base notes of sweat and testosterone lingering beneath. It wasn't entirely unpleasant. Actually, it was kind of hot in its uniquely masculine way. But I was in no mood and certainly no position to be turned on, crouching like a frog on top of some sneakers. My thighs were aching. I'd failed at pulling the hinge bifold doors all the way shut, so I was totally visible through the crack, and I had the hiccups. Oh, did I mention I was drunk? So that's very Melanie Harlow. Yeah. Kind of, it's not like corny, but it is funny and a little sarcastic. I don't know. She always writes characters that I feel like I would like to hang out with. Mm-hmm. So in contrast, here's J.D. Robb. Oops, there it is. Naked and Deaf. I think this one's signed too. Anyway, it's because I pulled them all off my signed shelf. She woke in the dark. Through the slats on the window shades, the first murky hint of dawn slipped. I'm having a hard time reading. The print is real small. Slanting shadowy bars over the bed. It was like waking in a cell. For a moment, she simply lay there, shuddering, imprisoned, while the dream faded. After 10 years on the force, Eve still had dreams. So already you can get the sense of like the darkness.
There's a darkness, yes.
Yeah, serious. And then I will read one more from my favorite book that Dawn hates, because it's really different. So this is a YA book by E. Lockhart called We Were Liars, also signed. And I'll just read the very beginning. Welcome to the beautiful Sinclair family. No one is a criminal. No one is an addict. No one is a failure. The Sinclairs are athletic, tall, and handsome. We are old money Democrats. Our smiles are wide, our chins square, and our tennis serves aggressive. So I haven't read enough E. Lockhart to know if that is always her voice. I know she wrote some like rom-com-y stuff before We Were Liars, but you get a whole other, like your voice sets one tone and then your book might set another, but they have to work together, right?
They mesh.
Yeah. So I started out trying to write very angsty romance, and just like it always felt wrong, and I never got much, I don't know, it never went anywhere really. It wasn't until I wrote rom-com and let my natural sense of humor kind of just fall into it that I felt like I was writing what I was supposed to be writing. And I think the whole process of writing becomes much easier if you can find your authentic author voice too. So here's a couple ideas if you're struggling with this. Write a letter to your best friend or your mom or your sibling, and don't try to sound any certain way. Just like write a letter about your day, and then really look at it and try to figure out what is the tone, or even, show it to them and say, okay, so like I'm trying to figure out my author voice. What would you describe as the tone here? And hopefully they'll identify parts of your personality that maybe you're not even able to identify yourself, that you need to honor. And if that is too out there, I'm going to drop a link to, I don't know if you guys follow Jeff Goins, who's a writer, and I'm hoping I'm saying that last name right. I found this on his blog and I thought it was interesting. It's 10 exercises to help you find your voice.
Yeah, I glanced through those, and those are really good. Very practical applications of do this and try it out.
Yeah, because it's kind of an up here idea. So
it is. And I think some people are like, well, you reach inside your soul and you don't do that. No, I need I want some step-by-step instructions of what to do. So.
Isn't there a worksheet I can fill out?
Right, exactly.
Can I take an online assessment? Come on. All right. Well, so I think we've pretty much beat the dead horse of finding your author voice, or nailed it into the ground.
We nailed the dead horse. I'm never going to not laugh at that. So shifting away from the author voices, now we're going to talk about the character voices. How do you create authentic, unique character voices? And of course, being as obsessed with deep POV as I am, I got the character voices. Author voices are a little more elusive and a little bit more like I know them when I see them. And when I'm working with clients, I can be like, okay, I know what your voice is, but it's so much harder to define. I think character voices are much easier, in my opinion, to be like, oh, this is how you create them. And so your character voice is going to reflect your character's personality, which is not necessarily the author's personality. And I think some new authors, the biggest thing I see with some of our newbies is one, it's themselves too much, and they're playing all the characters in their own play.
Yeah.
And so you gotta adjust that. Or they aren't really sure, they haven't fully formed this character, and they end up falling back on stereotypes. And so you don't want to do either one of those, even with your secondary characters, because I happen to know that Delancey Stewart is amazing at secondary characters. And none of them are stereotypical. Like, Gran is definitely not your stereotypical grandma. So you gotta dig deeper than that, basically. And
but you know what? I will say, every character has a little piece of Delancey, because they're all me, right? Yes. So Gran is just the Gran I hope to be someday.
And I have no doubt you will achieve that.
But I think to make your authors or not your authors, to make your characters distinct. They can't be you, but it's impossible to write a character that isn't a little bit you. So, but I don't think you need to sit down and be like, now which part of me is going to be in the hero? You just sort of figure it out as you're writing.
Well, and I don't think they necessarily have to be a part of you. They can be a part of somebody you know.
That's true.
Like you can base them on your husband or your 5th grade math teacher. You know, you can pull from those aspects of people that, especially, I think writers tend to be people watchers, because we're always, I know I am, you're always looking out for that story, that what's the story behind what's going on. Mm-hmm. And so I think you can pick people that you know and pick their mannerisms. And one of the things that makes the voices distinct is their word choice. And we're going to talk a little bit about where that word choice comes from. But the important thing is to know that the word choice is going to show up in their thoughts as well as in their dialogue.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
And that's where sometimes the characters don't feel fully formed, because they think one way and they're thinking more like the author. Because of
the complication in writing the mental thinking of the character versus the narrative voice, which will also happen, and they'll be interspersed. So because they're not in dialogue tags or quotes, I think sometimes it's hard for authors to remember, like, okay, I'm in the character's head right now. Oh, okay, now I'm the author describing this thing over here.
Right. And it's important when you're in that head that you're still picking the same type of words. And so if you know somebody who speaks this way, or things like TikTok, YouTube, where you can look at people and hear how they're speaking, hear what words they're using, and think about that in their head, that's going to come with their experience too. And like I've mentioned before, my kids have never heard a broken record.
Right.
They know the phrase, you sound like a broken record, and they know that it means you're repeating yourself, but they don't know why. And so when they're thinking about something like that in their head, they're not going to use the same phrase that somebody in their 50s would use.
Right.
And where it gets tricky is slang, because it changes so fast.
Yeah. That's why I'm afraid to write young people, unless they're little kids.
Well, and little kids are an issue too, which we'll talk about them in a second. But especially like with teenagers, I don't know, a couple of months ago, maybe a year ago, time has no meaning anymore, but everything was lit with my kids.
Yeah.
That's lit. That's totally lit. Yeah. Now everything's fire. So
I haven't heard that yet.
I guess it caught and now it's flamed, I guess. But everything, everything from, that nice car that just drove by to my spaghetti that I made last night, it's fire.
Okay.
So the problem is, if you put that in your book and then it's published 6 months from now, who knows what
fire anymore?
It's not fire anymore. They might have, it might have been doused at this point, and now it's soggy. I don't know. But so you've got to try to, and the same thing happens with little kids too, because one, you've got to pay attention to what age are they and what do they know?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and that can kind of vary. And yes, you can have a very precocious little kid that's going to talk a little bit more advanced than your average, like, kindergartner.
Like the 6-year-old in Jerry Maguire. The human head weighs 8 pounds, Jerry.
Right. Yes. But you have to keep that consistent. And that's a big important part of developing the character voice, is they can talk or think however you want them to talk and think, as long as it's consistent. Of a teenager who has been raised by their 70-year-old grandmother may use different words because that's the words that their grandma used at home. But you're going to keep it consistent, and there has to be a reason for it.
Yeah.
And so the biggest thing I see when looking at character voice is, would they have had that experience? Like, I have never stared down a bull. And so if I was in a situation where I was afraid and something is looking at me, my thought is not going to go to he's looking at me like a bull ready to charge, because I've never put myself in front of a bull ready to charge. And so that takes away from the characterization. So you match the cliches to your character. And I know we did a whole thing on cliches, and we've done a whole blog post on you've got to match it to your character. But you also match those thoughts to the character's voice of what have they had experience with and what fits this moment.
Right.
Because since I've lived in Texas and snow is not my thing, I'm not going to talk about, my feet being so cold it feels like, a February night when it's snowing, because I don't want to experience any more of those. So that's not something that sticks in my brain as a character.
Right. Well, that makes sense. And I think the way that people talk it can be a little overboard too. Like, you don't want to go too far with that. You're like, yes, your characters need to be distinct, but if you're going to use, for instance, what do they call it? What do you call it when someone has an accent? When you write it, like a dialect.
Dialect, yes.
If you're going to represent it in the text, which you kind of have to do in dialogue, you just want to shadow it in. Like, you don't want to do it bold because it gets super annoying. And then if you have a couple different characters that talk in really distinct ways, it's like, oh God, like, I don't even want to read that. So a light touch goes a long way on those types of things, I think. And there should be a lot of things that sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that characterize or that distinguish your characters besides their accent, right?
Yes,
there should be 90 other things that make it clear that the person who's talking is Uncle Jeb, right?
Well, and there should be things that are authentic to Uncle Jeb. If Uncle Jeb served 40 years in the Marines, he's probably not walking around saying, golly gee, I can't believe I just stubbed my toe.
Or get over there, sailor, because
we don't
have sailors in the Marines.
Right. So you're going to vary it based on age, location, background, all of those different things. And then the other advice I would have is when you get those pet phrases, you limit them to certain characters.
I just saw
so only one character in the Christmas novella gets to use the word festooned.
It was a full-length book, Dawn.
I'm sorry. Only one character in the Christmas novel gets to use the word festooned.
I think I was feeling extremely festive because I used the word festooned like 90 times in that book.
All sorts of different characters. So if you have a pet phrase, and especially if it's something as distinctive as the word like festooned, or the world, if you say something like, because you can use what we would consider old cliches, like she was talking a mile a minute. If this character says the little girl ran in and was talking a mile a minute, when you shift POVs to another character, that character is going to describe it in a different way. And that's one way you can keep those voices distinct.
Exactly.
And then avoid stereotypes. And this is like you were talking about, if you're writing a dialect. Yes, I have lived the majority of my life in the South. Yes, I understand. I have an accent. I don't have an accent. Y'all have an accent. But evidently when I go other places, I have an accent. I've never walked up to somebody and been like, well, howdy, partner. How you getting along today?
Have you said get along, little doggies ever?
No, not unironically. I do actually say howdy. I do actually say that.
You do? Not ironically?
Yeah. But I think that came from teaching. We used to have to stand by our doors and greet the kids when they would come in. And so that was me being like, howdy, morning, how's it going?
Oh, you were just running out of things to say.
Yeah, just annoying teenagers. Not that they were annoying. My goal was to annoy them at that point. Yes. So not every teenager is surly and rude and disrespectful. Not every person from New York talks like they're on The Sopranos. So you gotta vary those characters to make the voices feel unique and distinct.
Yes. I'm getting the sign that my internet sucks as usual. So my husband tells me I have to call the company and tell them that the dog chewed through the cord again. But I don't want to because they're going to be like, lady, how stupid are you?
Can you not control that?
I told you I built a fence, but I built it after he chewed through it again. Anyway, that's not the point of today's episode.
Okay, so character voices, author voices. Anybody got any questions for us? I'm going to drink now.
That means we did a really good job, right?
We have spread all of our knowledge.
Yes. Oh, and okay. Well, so we can sort of hit on a couple other things while we see if there are any questions. So the newsletter did not go out today, which is not surprising to me, but might have been surprising to people that were expecting it to go out today. I knew that
it's been a week. It's just been a week. That's all we're going to say is it's been crazy.
But it will go out. I'm not going to promise on when, but at some point in the future, there will be a newsletter in March-ish. Yeah. But we have a February winner of the giveaway that we were doing. It was for February, right? Yeah, because it's early March. That's right. Okay, I know where we are now. So that winner was emailed. Her name was Lucy, and we're very excited to send her a copy of Gwen Hayes's Romancing the Beat, which followed our February theme of romance and love, and is just such a great book. So
very useful.
There will be another newsletter drawing for March. And Dawn's going to remind us what it is. She told me already today, and I have already forgotten.
It is Creating Character Arcs by K.M. Whalen.
Yes. And she has an awesome website with lots and lots of advice on it, too.
Yes. She has an amazing website that I go to all the time. So, and link stuff for clients. So, yes, absolutely recommend her.
Yes. So, if you are not already subscribed to the newsletter, please do that. And if you want to bring a friend, that would be good, too. Because otherwise, pretty soon we're going to be giving the books to all the same people over and over again.
Well, and speaking of being a friend, I wanted to put in a little reminder of please come hang out with us in the Story Strategy Saloon. We have story prompts, we have grammar tips, we have writing questions. Come belly up to the bar with us.
Yes, do that. All right.
And I don't guess anybody has any questions for us.
I'm thinking no, it's a quiet night. It must be because of all the snow. Actually, now I think it's raining. I don't know.
Yeah. It's 70 out here and sunny. I'm just going to throw that out.
It's going to be 60 and sunny tomorrow, so I can live with this. And I think that's it. So next week, we'll be talking about writing for emotion, like authentic character reactions, connecting with your readers through your characters' emotions. Which I think we've danced around that. It's hard to do. So that should be interesting. And then we're going to take spring break.
Yes, we're going to take spring break off. And we've talked about the wounds before, and we're going to kind of like mesh those in with the emotions. Like if you have this wound, what's your authentic reaction to that? And kind of, we're going to do this with them.
We're going to
mesh them all together.
In that episode for sure. So prepare yourself, gird your loins.
And we do have classes. My Deep POV class is still up, which helps with your character voice.
Yes.
And we have other classes coming soon.
Yes, I've been working on a class all about hooking, which you know is a personal favorite topic of mine. It will help if you are struggling at all to get readers turning pages, moving from scene to scene, moving from chapter to chapter. This is going to be the course for you. And I have a special section on first lines and first pages and first 10 pages if you happen to be querying. So hopefully it's coming together very nicely. So good. Like all things in 2021 seems to be taking longer than I would like, but otherwise it should appear soon magically, like the newsletter.
Yes. It's all fine. It's all fine.
Everything's fine.
I don't think anybody has questions for us, but thank y'all for hanging out with us tonight.
All right. We'll see you guys again next week. Hasta la vista.